Welcome you back to the Patrick Netherton Show right here on 1130 The Tiger. He's Rogers Hampton Jr. I'm Patrick Netherton. We are pleased to welcome in the head coach of the LSU baseball team. He is Paul Mainieri, fresh off of a weekend series win against Eastern Kentucky. Got to feel pretty good after Saturday and Sunday. Coach, how are you?
I'm good, Patrick. How are you?
First things first, Coach. I'm great. But look, I've got to find a way. I don't know if y'all are can auction one off or what, but we got to find a way to get a Mo Hampton jersey because my producer is Rogers Hampton Jr. And now that Mo is wearing Hampton Jr. on the back of his jersey, I got to find a way to get one, Coach. I just have to. It's got to happen. All
right. We'll have to work on that for you.
I appreciate that. Coach, let's talk about early season baseball because I know it's always a bit of a struggle trying to find, put pieces where they're supposed to go, guys figuring out their roles. What do you learn and what do they learn in the early season through the first couple of series of the year?
Well, you have to remember we're only 8 games into the season. So that's 2 weeks worth of games. I think we as coaches, the greatest thing we can do is to know our players, what their strengths are, what their limitations are, and try to put them into situations that allow them to be most successful. We could base that off of inter-squad games during fall practice or in the preseason, but until you're playing against another team that really, you don't know that pitcher, the pitcher doesn't know you, and the games are being played for real, you really don't know for sure what each player is going to be able to do. You think you do, but in the games start, all kinds of surprises happen. And I just feel like right now, after about 8 games, I'm starting to get a much more greater grasp on what I believe to be our best combination of guys out there, what each guy can do, and what style of play we can play based on their strengths. So we're getting pretty close to it. And if anybody listened on Media Day, I told them, that our pitching was going to have to carry us through the early portion of the season while we're figuring out, the everyday lineup. And we've had some outstanding pitching performances, specifically Saturday and Sunday with Landon Marceau and A.J. Levis. But we've had some other good pitching performances as well. Our team ERA is about 2.5 runs a game only. So it's allowed us to try some different guys. Listen, I wish we would have won all 8 games. We've dropped 3 games, probably 2 of which we should not have dropped. But in order to learn some things about your team, sometimes you have to learn by having some failure. This is something Skip Bertman told me when he hired me 14 years ago. Don't be afraid to try different guys out, even if it costs a game or 2 early in the year. You're trying to build your team towards being its strongest at the end of the year, and that's how you get to Omaha and have a chance to win the national championship. So as much as I hate to lose and others, fans hate to see us lose a game, sometimes we gain a lot more from the failure because we learn about our players.
Well, and that leads into, I'm sure, your least favorite phrase in history, and that's midweek games, because that's where you typically start inserting guys. You're usually throwing a 4th or 5th starter. You're going to oftentimes use a lot of guys out of the bullpen just to see. You're going to put different position guys in. I know fans hate midweek losses, but at the same time, that's kind of your time to experiment, right?
Well, this time of year, the weekend games count the same as the midweek games. Mm-hmm. So we've been experimenting. And actually, this Wednesday, I feel like the lineup, with the exception of who the catcher and DH will be, we've decided that we're going to go with Alex Milazzo as our number 1 catcher, and Saul Garza as our designated hitter. But on this Wednesday, the roles will be reversed. Garza will catch and Milazzo will DH. But outside of that, I feel like we're starting to settle in on a lineup. So the thing that really has affected the midweek games is what you just described, Patrick, is what you can do with your pitchers. Mm-hmm. We're gonna use a lot of different guys, and we did this years ago, Alan Dunn and I, and it was ultra successful. And then we kind of got away from it a little bit in trying to develop a 4th starter. But when you pitch different guys in the middle of the week games, what it does is it keeps everybody sharp, and also keeps everybody healthy because you're not overusing anybody. And hopefully, if they all pitch well or most of them pitch well, then we're going to be able to hold the other team to a low-run game. People think that I don't care about midweek games, and that's the furthest thing from the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you go back just a few years ago, we went undefeated in our 14 midweek games, and that was actually the first time in LSU baseball history that we had done that. Even under the great Skip Bertman, they never went undefeated in midweek games. And then we did it again the following year. 2 years in a row, we didn't lose a single midweek game. So that, I wish we didn't lose any midweek games. And we didn't lose to Nicholls State last week because we weren't trying to win. It was just one of those days where we just couldn't come through with the big hit. And, their left-hander was very crafty, and he befuddled us. And consequently, we didn't score many runs. We only scored 2 runs. And unfortunately, we gave up 4 and lost. So I assure you, we're going to try to win this game on Wednesday. We're going to try to win every midweek game we can, within reason. You're not using your top 3 starters. You're not using maybe a couple of your key bullpen pieces, but you got to find out which guys can do the job for you as you work your way through the season.
Talking to Paul Mainieri, head coach of the LSU baseball squad. You mentioned the loss to Nicholls and the crafty left-hander, and then Friday night against Eastern Kentucky, it's 5 pitchers combined on a shutout, and none of them are breaking a pane of glass. I have often said, Coach, that the best way to beat an SEC team like that is to throw someone off speed, to basically throw someone that's 80 to 85 with a fastball as opposed to 90 to 95 with a fastball, because it messes up your timing. And I'm curious, how difficult is that to deal with when you're used to SEC speed? Guys, everyone's throwing low 90s and they got, great breaking balls versus a guy that comes up there and changes your speed at the plate so much.
Oh, Patrick, you couldn't be more right about that. We faced this guy pitching the other night on Friday night. His fastball was maybe 80 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
I never saw so many pitches under 70 miles an hour in my life. They probably didn't throw 20% fastballs the entire game. But what compounded things on Friday was the wind. It was about 38 degrees, and the wind was just howling straight in from center field, right in the hitter's face. And the fact that you had a left-handed pitcher out there made it extremely difficult to try to steal a base or to make things happen. And so it was impossible to get an extra base hit. It was impossible to steal a base. You were going to need 3 hits in a row to score a run. And because of the unorthodox pitching style, we just couldn't get a lot of good swings off. And when we did, we hit them right at people or the wind would kill it. So listen, I've been coaching for 38 years. I've seen it before, unfortunately. And it just, you had a bad feeling going into the game because of this combination of things. And, there's no question we had a better team than Eastern Kentucky. We should have won all 3 games. But, the uniqueness of the whole circumstances of Friday night lent towards us not being able to pull it out. Fortunately, as good as Cole Henry is, he walked a couple of batters in 1 inning, and those runners end up scoring. And conversely, when the other team walked our batters, we weren't able to take advantage of it. So it was a very difficult loss, especially on the heels of the Nicholls State game. But the best thing to do is put it behind us. We're moving forward. We ended up winning the series, and now we've got a really challenging week ahead of us. And I think we're going to find out a lot about where we are as a team, this week with Louisiana Tech, and then over to Minute Maid Park in Houston to play Texas, Baylor, and Oklahoma.
Yeah, it's going to be challenging, no doubt. I'm curious, Coach. I talk a lot. Bobby Barbie, I work at Northwestern State, call their games. So Bobby and I chat a whole lot, and one of the things he always talks about, especially early in the year, is patience, being willing to understand the long game in terms of a baseball season. How patient can you be with guys as, a guy like Drew Bianco is 1 for 16 to start. He can hit. It just, it's a slow start. The kid from up here at Airline, Travinsky, same way. First hit, I believe, was a home run. Hasn't gotten one since. Tell me about patience with some of these guys and trying to, find them ways to get at bats so they can break out of some of these early season issues.
Well, Patrick, that's a really good question. And this is the thing that's different about college baseball versus professional baseball. When you go in the minor league, they really don't care if they win the game or not. and they've got 144 games. They can just put a player out there for 100 games in a row, let him get 400 at bats, and let's see what he can do. Let's see if he can really play in the big league someday. Our season's 56 games, so we're 8 games into our schedule, and so all of a sudden we've played a seventh of our schedule. You don't have a lot of time. We've got this weekend and then one more weekend, and all of a sudden we're going to Ole Miss to start SEC play.
Mm-hmm.
And so your decisions have to be made a lot quicker. And, you recruit the players that you think will fit the style that you want to play and so forth, but you just never know how they're going to perform once they get here. And so, you can't be what we've been up until this week is, I hate to call it indecisive, but we've been trying a lot of different guys and a lot of different combinations. And I don't think that works for the long run. So sooner or later, you just got to bite the bullet and say, okay, these are the guys we're going to go with. This is why we're going to go with them. And the other guys are going to wait their turn. And when they get their opportunity, if they take advantage of it, then their status ends up changing. And so it's a tough one, though. Bobby's right. Patience is a virtue, but also, there's a sense of urgency, especially when you're at a place like LSU where you're so under the microscope and everybody wants to see you win every game.
You changed hitting coaches going into this season. Now Eddie Smith is your hitting coach. Tell me about that transition and what you've seen early on as especially on Saturday and Sunday, your offense started to warm back up a little bit.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, before that, there's always circumstances. People might think they're excuses, but you can't win every game in baseball, and sometimes things are not as bad as they may appear. Like I explained to you Friday night, the conditions were just deplorable to try to hit. And, with the Nickel State game, I just give a lot of credit to the way their kid pitched. He kept us off balance, and, before you know it, now it's the late innings, you start to press a little bit, you hit some balls right at people, and they're caught, and, the game ends with 2 runners on base, and our batter smokes a line drive and right at the right fielder. Instead of if it's a few feet this way or that way, it's a double to tie the game. But I think Eddie Smith is doing a really great job. He's very organized. He's got a plan of action. He's learning about our players as much as they're learning from him. And then, I add in my 2 cents. So I think Eddie is a phenomenal coach. I think our players respond to him, but they need to start, hitting the ball a little bit better, to make everybody understand just how good a coach Eddie Smith is and how much he's helping. But right now, the guys are pressing a little bit, and they want so badly to be a starting player that they're putting a lot of extra pressure on themselves. And that's why I think if we just, settle into something, now's about the right time to settle into a lineup. Let's see if it works. When other guys get an opportunity, if they step up and do something, and that window of opportunity is not that big, but if they do something well, then you're more apt to use them again, in the near future. So we'll see how it all plays out. But I couldn't be more pleased with the job that Eddie Smith does with our guys.
Talking to Paul Mainieri, the head coach of the LSU baseball squad. Coach, at your level, junior college transfers are much more rare than they are at the mid to lower levels of Division I baseball. A guy like Zach Mathis comes in, and he's obviously having a terrific start to the season, and he's plugging a hole and filling a need for you. But I'm curious, when you put together a recruiting plan, walk me through just how special a JUCO guy has to be for you to want to go get him, as opposed to all of these tremendous high school talents that you're able to go out and get.
Well, the way that it happened with Zach Mathis was, I'd like to say I'm that smart, but I'm really not. We were in a state of crisis because the kid that we had recruited, we thought would be our shortstop of the future, was a kid by the name of Christian Cairo. And Christian assured us he was going to be coming to school unless he received a certain signing bonus. They ended up not even coming close to the signing bonus that was necessary for him to sign, but he decided to sign anyway. And so, he had the right to do that. I don't hold anything against him, but we lost our shortstop in the summer from, that we thought we were going to have. So we immediately had to kind of call on our contacts that we have around the country. And this one particular contact that we know recommended this boy, Zach Mathis. So I did a little background checking along with Nolan Kane, and it turns out that he was playing for a junior college in California where the coach there used to be the coach at the United States Air Force Academy, where I had coached at one time. So he had followed me there, and so I called the coach, and the coach told me, "Hey, listen, this kid is the best hitter I've ever coached, and he's a decent shortstop, not phenomenal, but he can really hit." So we immediately called Zach. He was on a visit to South Carolina at the time, and he had visits scheduled to Florida State and Texas Tech. So when he came and visited us next week, and he canceled his last two visits and came with us, and aren't we lucky that he did? And if he needed to, he could do a good job at shortstop, but I think he's terrific at third base. And so we're trying different guys at shortstop right now, and hopefully, Collier Cranford, a freshman, we're trying there right now, do the job. And then we're kind of patiently waiting for another freshman by the name of Zach Arnold to get healthy, that had broken a rib in the fall and had to have subsequent surgery, so he hasn't been physically fit to play yet. So we're hoping that he comes back soon, and if he provides a spark for us and we can make another move a little bit later in the season then to make ourselves stronger, then so be it. But finding a junior college player that can come in and step in and be great right away is very unusual. I remember, again, Skip Bertman telling me when I first got here, sometimes the junior college transfers, even though you think they have 2 years of experience under their belt, it's so different at LSU that you have to be patient with them. In their second year, they're always a lot better than the first year.
Yeah, we've always said one year for JUCO guys typically is what you get.
Mathis is doing so well, he may end up only being here for 1 year. We'll see.
Final thing for me, Coach, and obviously because we've got a kid from Airline down there, we need to ask about Hayden Travinsky. Tell me about this kid. Why'd you sign him, and what do you expect his future to look like?
I love Hayden, first of all. He's an awesome young man and great enthusiasm and love of life. He's just a really good kid to have around. He stays very loose, and he's always joking with me, and I just love him for it. He's obviously a big, strong kid with a lot of talent. His catching needs to be a little bit more refined. He's working at it, and I think he's getting better. He caught the last 4 innings of yesterday's game, and I thought they did a very good job. He hit a home run the other day, and I was, I'm hoping that he'll hit more. I don't know how many games he started in these first 8, 3 or 4, it seems, but he just hasn't had much luck besides the one home run that he hit. But he's got a long career ahead of him, and I think he's gonna be great. I'm glad he's here, but he's just gonna have to be a little patient, waiting for his next opportunity.
Yeah, I kind of feel for the kid because he's following Airline High School to LSU. That's a Todd Walker lineage. That's a lot of pressure to put on a kid. That's for sure.
Well, yeah, there's very few Todd Walkers in the world. So
Amen.
We're not going to compare him to Todd. He's his own man, and he's a good player. In time, I think it's going to show through.
Beautiful. Coach, thank you so much for your time today. We really do appreciate it, and best of luck moving forward. Look, I know I worked with Lane Burroughs when he was at NSU, but you go beat the pants off that guy, all right? Go take care of him. I got me and LB23. You can take him out as far as I'm concerned.
Well, we're going to do our best. Lane's a great guy and a great coach, as is Bobby, so I'm good friends with all those coaches up there in northern Louisiana.
You got it, Coach. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Beautiful work. That's awesome. That's Paul Mainieri, the head coach of the LSU baseball squad.